Sorry, jumped ahead. And so on my screen, you see 3 photos. The first one is, and I'm sure a lot of people can recognize this in themselves, that they might be eating while they're doing a lot of other things. And that might take away from the satisfaction that you have from eating. It may make you not aware that you've just eaten, and then suddenly later you want to eat again. And so mindful eating is eating, and that is really all you're doing is eating. So I first want to talk a little bit about what mindfulness is. And I love the photo that's over in the corner. Is my mind full, or am I mind full? So in mindfulness, we like to think about that we have something that we call a traveling mind or a wandering mind. And it'll wander to the past, it'll wander to the future, but it really doesn't focus a lot on what's being done in the present. And in fact, you have to train your mind to want to be in the present. So our friend here, I still don't know if it's a boy or a girl, is walking their dog. And if they're walking their dog and they're thinking about all the different things that maybe they had an argument with a friend and that's on their mind, and so they're traveling into the past, maybe they're thinking about something that they have to do in the future, thinking about their to-do list, then they're not really engaged in the activity. And so when we're thinking about being mindful, we're thinking about being fully engaged in the activity, utilizing all of our senses. So a mindful walk might be that I notice how the sun feels on me and how it's making me feel. I may notice the smell that's in the air. Maybe it's the gentleman's mindful grilling that is going on in my neighborhood. Or maybe it's just the smell of a certain flower. I might notice everything in my visual path. Joe needs to cut his bushes. That looks beautiful. But I'm really in the moment and I'm really feeling it. I often notice the pace at which I'm walking. I'll notice how my feet hit the ground as well. I'll take note of my posture and how I'm moving as I'm moving my body from foot to foot. All of those things are kind of me being intentional in that moment. So I'm observing, I'm describing, and I'm participating in that very moment. And it's a very intentional thing. If I take my intention off of it, my mind will probably start to wander. If I bring it back, then I'm back in the moment. So it's kind of like an eyes wide open, kind of having an experience. And the other thing about mindfulness is that you don't want to judge. So I don't want to judge this experience of walking my dog with other experiences of walking my dog. I want to have a new moment in time. And so these are the basic concepts of mindfulness. So in mindfulness, we often talk about our formal practice and our informal practice. Our formal practice is a time that we set aside to do some form of meditation. And so you may be doing sitting meditation, what we call body scan, or mindful movement. So I want everybody And I can't see anybody, so I don't know what's going on, but I want everybody to engage for a minute in sitting meditation. And so I want you to think about somebody taking a string and pulling your head up. And then I want you to drop your shoulders down. So you should feel kind of like a release in your neck. And all that energy and tension that sometimes you get in your neck, it should just kind of be going away. Put both feet on the ground. And then you can decide what you want to do with your arms. Mine, I have a chair that I have an armrest. So I'm just going to put my arms right there. If you don't, you can put your arms in your lap. And then I want you to close your eyes. So in meditation, you have some kind of formal focal point. And in mindful meditation, it's your breath. Now, we're not trying to do deep breathing. We're just trying to notice our breath. So every time your mind starts to wander, you want to bring it back and just notice your breath. So as you do this, you want to also engage all your senses. So hearing, I hear the air conditioner in my room right now. Probably should turn it off because it's a little chilly. How do your feet feel against the floor? How do your arms feel against the chair? Noting when your mind starts to wander back and forth, and then pulling it back to the present. You may note whether or not the air that's coming in to your nose is cold, warm. When you breathe in, what happens in your neck, in your chest, your shoulders? So now that we feel very calm, and this is usually how I feel, sometimes I have to, as I'm coming back out of meditating, I have to open my eyes very slowly. Before I open my eyes, I might think about what the room's going to look like. Sometimes when I've meditated for over 30 minutes, I feel like I'm in some kind of altered state. And so coming back to the room, I have to kind of help myself remember what the room looks like before I open up my eyes. So everybody should have their eyes open now, hopefully. Feeling a little bit more calm. So there's sitting meditation, and that's one that we just did. There's multiple different kinds of sitting meditation. There's what I call the mindful minute. Sometimes I do that right before I eat. Just take a moment, relax, look at the plate, think about what I'm going to eat. I also love to engage in a meditation called Mountain. And I also very, very much love one that's called Loving Kindness. Down below on my screen here, you see that I'm recommending the app called the Mindfulness Coach. This is a free app that you can get at the App Store. It was made by the VA, and you can download probably around 20 different meditations. And there's a timer to it, and you can set it for as long as you would like. If you're new to meditation, I'd say try to go 1 to 2 minutes and then build up from there. Because it takes a while for you to start to control your kind of wandering mind. Body scan is trying to understand what's going on in your body. And you may start with, and again, it's a meditation, so you might start with your left foot. And you're just thinking about your left foot, all of your toes, the bottom of your foot. And you're just trying to describe how that small piece of your body feels at this moment. Is it cold? Is it hot? Is it wet? And then you just move up one leg. Then you go to the next leg. You move up the next leg. You move up through your torso, through both arms, your neck, and then your head. Good body scan takes anywhere between 30 and 45 minutes. Most of the time I fall asleep before I get to my neck and I move up to my head because I find it to be one of the most relaxing things. And a lot of times I'll do it in bed, trying to get my wandering mind calmed down so that I can sleep. So that's the body scan, and you're usually not moving. So this is how your body feels when you're not moving. Then there's mindful movement, which can include yoga, Tai Chi, or mindful walking. The Mindfulness Coach app has some really great instructions on how to do mindful walking. But all of these kinds of things are helping you to be aware of how your body feels as you're moving in space. And if you're really interested in a very long version of a very, very good program, there's Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction. And there are folks that are qualified to teach this. And it's an 8-week program, and there's extensive research to it, showing that it helps with a lot of different health ailments. So this is the formal. The informal is trying to pull yourself to being kind of in the moment when you're doing certain things. So this could be applied to eating, to driving, to shopping, whatever kind of activity that you want to try to be more engaged in. And when you do the formal type of meditation, or when you engage in a formal practice, it helps you kind of pull yourself into that moment much more quickly in the informal areas of practice. So some of the benefits of using mindfulness-based stress reduction, it reduces stress, feelings of well-being, or it improves feelings of well-being, negative emotions. It's been used extensively with hypertension, anxiety. It's helped with sleep disorders. There's a large number of studies being done using mindfulness-based stress reduction, the 8-week program, and chronic pain management at the moment to see if it would help. Also, it's been used with substance abuse. And for my area, it's been used to try to help people with their eating disorder. And mindfulness-based stress reduction has been altered into a mindful eating program. And the first purpose for that was to help people who had an eating disorder kind of get back and engage with food rather than all of the cognitive messaging that they would have about food. But people have tried to use this with people who are just trying to lose weight. And some people may gain weight. Usually those are what I call your high restrictors. They have been doing very restrictive diets for a very long period of time. They are so out of sync with what their body truly needs that when they do start to realize I'm hungry and I want to eat, many times they'll start to gain just because they've been restricting and maybe restricting way past what would be an appropriate body weight for them. And then there are people who are really overweight who use it and find that they lose. My big note here is the number of hours that you spend in formal practice is highly correlated with greater changes in health, in any of the health problems that are listed over there. And I found that true in terms of mindful eating as well. So it's more of a holistic approach, and it's not about what you eat. And I love that message. Eat whatever you want, but it's really more about how you eat. And so it's about noticing when you're hungry, noticing when you're full, really taking notice of what you're eating as you're eating it, and then noticing how you're feeling as you're eating as well. So the owl here is trying to get at your inner wisdom about what you should be eating. And so there's a lot of reasons why we eat. We see something, then we decide that somehow that visual cue makes us want to eat. We have lots of rules that we have about eating. Many of us who have been dieters for many, many years may have lots of different rules. I have to eat at this time, etc. Some people eat for emotional reasons or eat because they're stressed. But many times we're not eating for what I call stomach hunger. And that grumbling in your stomach, truly your body is hungry, or you notice like your blood sugar is dropping, or you notice that you're feeling a little lightheaded. Those are kind of the cues, your biological cues that it's time to eat. So your body has kind of like this inner wisdom, kind of like a thermostat, if you would like to think of it in this way. And it regulates your hunger and it regulates your fullness. And so, so in hunger, as you get more hungry, the signal gets a little bit more stronger, or it should. If you ignore that signal, like a lot of people who diet do, you need to try to relearn what the signal feels like for you specifically. And when I talk about this in the group projects that we do in my lab, I often find that people don't know what their hunger signals are anymore. They've ignored them for so long that they need to relearn them. And then fullness is also something that we can think about in terms of a thermostat. And both hunger and fullness, we can easily override them by the cues that we have to eat. So these are all the outer experiences that sometimes cause us to eat rather than the internal cue of hunger and satiety. So we might see food, want to eat it, like Pavlov's dogs. If you've taken a psychology class, you know all about them. It might be that you're eating and you're eating in such a distracted way that you're overeating. and you're not even realizing what you're eating or how much you're eating. It could be that your eating patterns have become so habitual that it's almost unconscious. So you see the cue, it's noon, time to eat lunch. Don't know if I'm hungry or not, but I do that. Or I'm driving past the McDonald's, I see the golden arches, I think French fries, and suddenly I'm in the drive-thru. And many times highly palatable foods make us feel really good, like foods that are high in fat and high in sugar. They give us kind of like a little bit of like a boost in what we call our neurotransmitters. And that's enough to make us go, oh, we feel better. Or maybe my cue is I have no time, so I stop at McDonald's, and the reward is I've saved some time. So habits are probably the most difficult thing to try to change, because after a bit, you don't realize that you are just going to the routine every time you see the cue. And emotional eating is the same way. I feel sad, I eat, now I feel comfort. And next time I feel sad, I eat, I comfort myself with food. So a lot of reasons that we eat that don't have anything to do with hunger or satiety. So my first mindful eating tip is we can think about is to really get to know when we're hungry and get to know when we are getting close to being feeling good or feeling satisfied. So we want to stay away from the red, being very, very hungry. When we're really, 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 really hungry, that is when we really just don't have a lot of control in what we're eating, and we lose the intentionality of what we're doing when we're eating. So we may eat very fast because we're very, very hungry, and we didn't realize that all of a sudden we've eaten a full plate of pasta when we really didn't. We probably shouldn't have been eating that much. So we want to eat when we start to feel hungry. So we want to understand what this feels like, this kind of the yellow version of the hunger. And then we want to stop, not when we're full. I think in our language here, we constantly are using the word full, but what we really want to do is be feeling good or satisfied. So satisfied with the types of foods we ate, the textures of the foods that we ate, the colors of the foods that we ate, the engagement that we had, how it made us feel. We want to be in here. We want to be satisfied. And one way, it takes a bit for your body to know and start to know when you're eating and start giving you that sign to stop. So it can work. So getting in touch with your body can work, but you're going to have to eat very slowly in order to be able to do that. So my next tip here is putting your utensils down. A lot of people do not do this. They go like French fries, boom, 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 boom. Put your utensils down, even if your utensils are your fingers. Stop for a minute, look at what you're about to eat, think about it, then start eating. If you're having a beverage that's high in calories, enjoy it. Some people slurp beverages, and if it's a cola that has 150 calories per 12 ounces, that's a lot of calories that you can get in a very quick period. And you want to at least enjoy them. if I'm having a milkshake, I'm going to really think about, I mean, that's 400 calories in a 12-ounce milkshake. I'm going to sit there and really enjoy it. So sip them slowly and savor them as well as savoring your food. Some point during a meal, before you get to about halfway through your plate, stop for a minute and think, is this still emotionally satisfying? Am I starting to get full? Where am I? So being very intentional about how much you're going to eat. So my next thought is to eat like a chef. And so I am a trained chef and I've gone to cooking school. And so when they were training us, they talked about like the very best bite of food that you could have. And they often talked also about really having a full understanding of what the plate looks like, how things are arranged on the plate, what's the smell of the food, what's the taste of the food. You see my little character tasting it to see if it's just right before it's being served. So in mindful eating, and so this is where I've asked you to bring your items. So in mindful eating, we do this eating with awareness activity. So the first thing I want you to do is whatever you've brought. We're going to see what Miranda has brought. I have a cherry tomato. And so the first thing that I want to do is I want to focus on it. And I want to describe it. It's red, it's round, it's hard on the outside. My next thought here is I want to think about expectations. How do I think it's going to taste? And I want to discard any expectations that I've had about cherry tomatoes previously. I've been eating them out of my garden all summer, but these I bought in the grocery store. So I want to just have a moment where I'm not thinking about all those cherry tomatoes that I've eaten previously, but now I'm going to eat this cherry tomato. And if you think I don't like cherry tomatoes, when I do this activity in person with folks, a lot of people would be like, no, I do not like that food that you're about to make me eat. And I'm like, well, that's a previous experience with the food. This is a new experience with the food. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put it to my lips, but I'm not going to eat it. And I want to describe the texture of the item. Is it okay to chat about this?
Of course.
Okay, so in the chat, we might want to talk about what we're trying to eat and how does it feel when it comes up against your lips?
I brought some raisins for my dried fruit. So
this one is always done with raisins, and I
just had it in my pantry this morning before I left the house, and I was like, I can use these.
I'm not seeing anything in the chat, so.
Yeah. Somebody has a dried pineapple, dried mango. Sounds good.
Okay, so if I'm putting
cherries.
So if I'm putting like a raisin up against my lips, how does it feel?
It's kind of rough.
So rough would be, mine is very smooth. The cherry tomato is very, very smooth. I just got it out of the ice box, so it's cold as well.
Dense. Somebody said dense, room temp.
Okay. The next thing you want to do is smell it.
I don't think I have a smell.
So I have absolutely no smell coming from the cherry tomato. How about others? Any smell?
So let's see, smooth. Somebody who had the pineapple says it doesn't smell like a pineapple at all.
Okay.
Smells, oh, hold on, let's see what this person. Banana chips, but it doesn't smells just like a banana. I'm
Okay.
seeing has an olive that's smooth.
Okay. So you want to smell it. Now, the next thing is if it's something that you can put in your mouth, fully put it in your mouth and begin to understand the taste of it. Don't chew yet. Begin to understand the taste of it. Note how it tastes. And then note how it tastes when you start chewing it. So if you haven't started chewing yet, start chewing. And then the last thing before you swallow it, notice how it tastes as it's going down. And you can notice the taste, you can notice the texture. How is your raisin, Miranda?
I didn't taste anything until I started chewing it.
True, but had like a very funky texture in your mouth. Just
Definitely. It's not something I normally eat, so it was different.
and until you started chewing it, you just didn't really realize how sweet it was.
Yeah.
How about our pineapple eater and our olive eater?
Let's see. One said sweet, mild, chewing, sharper, almost citrusy. Somebody said soft, crunchy. Tastes more like candy than pineapple, but the texture is gummy.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet condensed flavor. Loves olive, so anticipated good.
Okay. Now I also asked you to bring some kind of processed food.
I got a cracker.
Okay, so Miranda's got a cracker. What do other folks have?
Wheat thins, Chex Mix, crackers, a biscuit.
Okay, so let's do the same thing again, where we bring it to our lips and we think about just how it feels up against our lip.
Mm-hmm. Soft.
It feels salty to you?
Salty, yeah. Soft, almost fluffy, rough.
Okay.
Reading comments.
Okay. Now the chat's really going.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like I'm interacting with the audience that I can't see.
Somebody said sweet and rough, smoother than I expected.
Okay. The next thing you want to do is smell it. So what does it smell like?
Almost like a bread, like a, I don't know, like a bread factory, I guess. Cinnamon. Earthy.
Okay, so now for this one, if it's something that can be done like this, want to take a bite and let it sit in your mouth and dissolve and think about how it tastes at the beginning, how it tastes in the middle, and how it tastes going down. But let it dissolve a little bit. And then tell me a little bit about how this might be different, how the taste at the beginning is different than the taste at the end.
The taste definitely like went away. Like after it started dissolving, there's no taste.
Okay.
Feels like dough or flour in the middle as compared to the initial sweet feeling, stronger taste at the beginning, but smoother at the end. Taste faded over time. Salty in the beginning, very little taste at the end.
Okay. And that is typical for processed foods because they want to engage your tongue really quickly and help you swallow before you notice that that food really didn't have any taste outside of some of the preservatives that were put on it, some of the salt that was put in it, some of the sugar that was put on it, etc. And so if you're true, and hopefully the manufacturer of these types of things, chips and cookies and things like that, are hoping you're not noticing how the food tastes. You're just putting them in a mindless way. So the moment you start really truly noticing a lot about how your food tastes, many times you're drawn to foods that are more fresh. I tend to find that, and things that are more processed, you start to get turned off by it. So the longer you do this and practice mindful eating, you may see kind of a change in the kinds of things that you like and the things that you don't like.
I got a couple of interestings in the chat from that.
Oh, okay. And eating like a chef also, there are different kinds of flavors in food: sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and something called umami, which is kind of the meaty flavor, like a meaty flavor of mushroom or tomato paste or beef stock. And your tongue measures all of these different flavors as well. And so you may also want to think about taste satisfaction. So if you can't feel how full you are before you stop, there's a point at which your taste buds that are tasting sweet get tired and they stop tasting. So if you can think about like a great food that you've eaten, like say your best steak dinner in a nice restaurant, that first bite was just like you're hungry and that first bite is delicious. The second bite, still delicious. Third, fourth, fifth, it starts to get, if you're really, really thinking about it and you're really noticing, there comes a point where that satisfaction that you have from that bite kind of goes away. And that's because the flavor meter is going down. Your taste buds, they were all excited about getting a chance to eat the food. And now that they're eating, they're a little bit less excited. And so this is another way of saying, I'm not really enjoying this as much as I had been at the beginning. Maybe this is my place where I'm slowing down, or maybe this is my place where I put this away. Which can help folks who are like, want to have a chip, want to have a chip, want to have a chip. This is all you can think, you know, sometimes you get like an idea in your head of something that you want to eat. And if you eat it slowly and you really think about eating it, after a couple of chips, you're not going to want to have another chip because you're really done with that flavor. Here's my next tip. If I live in a house of cookies, I will eat cookies. So what does my environment look like, and how am I shaping my food environment to shape the cues that I have around food? And so if I build a better food environment, then I may not eat as much of those items. Or if I just put those foods away into the cabinets, I won't keep walking past them and be cued again and again. And this will help me eat when I'm hungry and stop when I'm satisfied. And then eating in terms of emotions and stress. So I showed you the little cue, and then I have a routine that I do when I have that cue, and then I feel better. So what I need to do is when I have the cue of having a bad day, having a stressful day, I change my routine and I make it something that's satisfying, that does not have to do with food. So maybe I'm tense, I'm stressed. Instead, I meditate for 5 minutes. Now I feel better. So instead of using food as my coping mechanism for my stress-related eating or my emotional eating, I am using something else beside food. So taking a walk, meditating, sitting down to read a book for a few minutes, doing something with your kids, like going to the park and having something that is enjoyable, that pulls your stress levels down, but doesn't have to do with food. So what does the science say about mindful eating? Lots of studies have been done so far, and I am one of those people who are doing some of those studies, that it really does help in terms of making impulsive food choices. So when you're trying to be more, I mean, it makes sense when you're trying to be more intentional. Of course, it's gonna have something to do with how impulsive, reducing your impulsive food choices. Some people have found that it helps rid them of a lot of their dieting rules, and they have more control again with what they're eating. And some people find that it helps in terms of their confidence and making better choices. In our studies, we found that people who mindfully eat consume around 200 calories less per day than what they were consuming before they started our program. And for men, it seems to work a whole lot better for men than it does for women. Not sure how that happens. In a lot of weight control studies, that always happens, that men do better than the women. And it's helped with blood sugar control. And a lot of people think that people with diabetes, sometimes when they're very stressed, their blood sugars go up. And so some people who've done the mindful eating with the meditation who have diabetes have found that they didn't change their diet in any way, but the meditation actually did help to lower their stress levels and therefore their blood sugar. It's not something that you do to try to lose weight for the wedding on Saturday. It's something that you do to really focus in on changing behaviors that you probably never noticed, such as how fast you eat, or that you eat and you don't notice what you're doing when you're eating, or that you're eating in a paired activity with something that, you're eating at your computer while you're working. It's becoming just more intentional. The interesting thing about the weight control studies that have been done in mindful eating is that when people finish that 8-week program, they usually continue, if they continue to engage in the behaviors, they typically continue to lose weight. Where in your traditional diet, like low carb, low fat diet studies that have been done. When people discontinue the program, they usually kind of start to drift back to the normal way that they had been eating previously, and they start to gain back. So kind of a little bit of difference between the two. So my current research, I have something that I call Project Me, which is the mindful eating and exercise program. We are now trying to take that program and we are trying to do something where we look at whether or not it can be taught. The Project Me project that we've been doing has been in group, and I really enjoy sitting with a group and actually seeing and interacting with a group. We want to try to do that by teleconferencing and see if it works in the same way as it would in person. So that's a new study that we're going to start in January. So if you want to be involved in that study, shoot me an email, and I'll let you know when we're about to start recruiting, and we can go from there. We're doing a study called the SNACK study, and this one is one where we're trying to figure out what kind of messages people need by text. And then my last study is I'm also training healthcare professionals in the use of mindful eating and how they can use it with their patients. So I hope you enjoyed this.
It's very good.
Do I have any questions before we close up?
That was very good.
Oh, thank you.
I love that you're working with healthcare professionals for mindful eating too. That's very good.
Yeah, we'll be, I have some funding to do that, and we'll be doing our first kind of pilot education coming up in November. I'll let you know, Miranda, if you want to come.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Is there a way we can make the PowerPoint available? I can email it to everyone if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay, we can email that out to everybody who attended. Stop.